And now for our weekly discussion of what makes and sometimes misses the news. Joining me are Simon Webb, who's Communications Specialist with Ogilvy PR, and Romilly Maju, CEO of the Green Building Council of Australia. Well, we have some issues to discuss, but I first wanted to get your response to the mining incident in New Zealand. We've just had Chile, now we have New Zealand. There's obviously an intense focus in the world on mining incidents at the moment.
It's terrible. I was thinking about it this morning. I was in a mining community in Queensland when the Chilean issue happened, and it touches miners across the country too. It's not just it's not just about the locals, but it's tragic, and we just sort of sit here watching and waiting and hoping.
It is tragic, isn't it? And we have had no communication from these workers in New Zealand.
No, and I think that's what's so sad. Worker safety is crucially important, and we also have the issue of what happened in Tasmania as well. And that's really sad when there's such a time difference between when you can actually hear from the miners. And with communications today, you'd think we wouldn't have these problems. It's quite scary to think that they're down there and we don't know whether they're alive or not.
Exactly. Well, we'll be updating any developments through the morning. The issue of asylum seekers has garnered more headlines as the weeks pass. This week there's been a second suicide attempt at Sydney's Villawood Detention Centre and more protests. There's also a political blame game going on. Let's listen to Immigration Minister Chris Bowen on the issue.
Up to 10 individuals have harmed themselves by sewing stitches into their lips. Obviously this is very distressing for everyone concerned. It's distressing for me and will be distressing for most Australians. I think that we can expect more tension at our detention centres as our recognition rates continue to fall. Obviously, let me repeat that any protest which is designed to change the result of refugee applications will not work.
That's Chris Bowen there. Simon Webb, 2 suicides. Can we just say this is what happens with some people, or do we actually have to take note of this?
I think we have to take note of this. I mean, we have a serious duty of care here. We deprive these people of their freedom for a very good reason, arguably, but having decided that they need to be detained, we need to make sure that we look after them as best we can, and that's as much their psychological and mental health as it is their physical health.
Romilly Maju, do you think that we can ever get an asylum seeker policy right?
It's a very complex issue, but I think we really need to relook at the whole immigration policy. These people have been in countries that we in Australia would not understand. We have such freedom here, and they've come a long way to try and emulate the freedom that we have. They've already been in jail in some cases. They've been in terrible, terrible conditions, and we put them back into terrible conditions. Obviously, it's not working, and we need to look at a different way of dealing with our asylum seekers, and in a more passive and gentle way than what we're doing.
I wonder, just open to both of you, do you see this as an issue related to Australia's population size, or is it something completely different? Is it a small percentage of people who might have racist feelings against newcomers, or what is this debate really about?
I think at a political level, they're very much connected. I think at a public policy level, they're very, very different. I think politically, the community largely conflates asylum seekers with the skilled migration intake we have, and politicians, frankly, have done a very poor job of explaining the differences between the two and the benefits of the different types of migration and why we need to have both types of migration.
Why do you think they have been bad at that?
Because I think a lot of the concern that people have around immigration is actually concern about infrastructure stress and services stress. You know, the governments aren't doing a very good job of delivering either of these. And if governments then spend a lot of time explaining why immigration's okay, they still haven't solved the problem of infrastructure stress, where it's much easier to sit back and say, well, we're going to take a breath, we're going to stop people coming, we're going to have a sustainable Australia rather than a big Australia, when in fact I think it allows them to avoid what is a very nasty political issue for governments.
Romilly, how do you see this? Is the asylum seeker issue part of the bigger debate about a sustainable Australia?
No, I think they're 2 separate issues, and really it comes down to people are worried about jobs. You know, we've just come through the GFC and they see boat people coming in and they misunderstand that they're 2 different issues. Simon's right. What I think we need to do is work closely with the communities of where they've come from, so the Afghani communities and the Iran communities that are in Australia, and communicate, the devastating environments they've come from, and why we should welcome them to Australia. And we're not having those conversations. We are a multicultural country, and we've always been that way, and we do welcome many people into Australia, and we just need to isolate out some of these issues. I think sometimes the media can grab on one or two small groups that have a loud voice, but when it's really broader Australia, I'm not sure that really the issue's there. I think we want to be more caring about these people.
During the election, there was a lot of focus on the number of boats that were coming to Australia, stop the boats and all that sort of thing. There are still many more boats arriving, and the government doesn't seem to be able to stop that. Do we need to be focused on boats, considering that it's quite a small proportion of the illegal immigrants, if you want to call them asylum seekers, who come to Australia actually arrive on boats?
I think boats are something that you can put in the press. You know, you can see there's a boat, it's coming in. It's not picking up the people that are coming through our planes, and planes is the other way that they come through, and they're treated very differently than boat people. And so I think it's a great way of saying, look, there's boat people coming in, but compared to other industrialised countries, we're not big in the amount of immigrants coming to Australia. We're quite low on the scale of it compared to other countries.
Okay, now gay weddings are currently banned, and both of the main political parties oppose them. However, lawmakers this week agreed to canvass public opinion on gay marriage in a narrowly won parliamentary motion, 73 to 72. Let's hear some opposing views from that debate.
It's the first time that the House of Representatives has acknowledged the importance of marriage equality, and not some second-class recognition of relationships, but full equality, including marriage.
I've made my personal view known. I support same-sex marriage. In terms of what the process is, one option could be a conscience vote. I believe it is a matter of conscience, but again, the party works within its national platform.
I mean, if you want to have a relationship, you can have it, but you can't ask the government of Australia to bless it.
Well, why can't you ask the government of Australia to bless it, Romilly Madew?
There are many same-sex couples who have longer relationships than heterosexual couples. There are many same-sex couples who have children and should have the same rights as heterosexual people, and really it's something that we welcome them into our community in every other way except for this. I'm not sure why it's being so politicised. Other countries have allowed same-sex marriages. We should just allow it and move on.
Well, a lot of people are saying this is actually now becoming a core issue for the Labor Party, and indeed that parliamentary vote was very close. Now, if Parliament is supposed to reflect public opinion, I wonder, what is it saying?
Well, I think there are two different types of ways in which Parliament can reflect public opinion. There's the Parliament that can look at community consensus as it stands at the moment and say, well, this is where we're going to be. But politicians also have a job at taking consensus forward, actually going somewhere and taking the community to a place where we're better off. And there's ample evidence that suggests that communities that are tolerant do better. Community, that are technologically advanced, tolerant, and have talent. That those three things are hugely important for countries' prosperity in the future and productivity. And we've got talent. We're technologically advanced. But if we can't show that we're tolerant on issues like this, we're going to have a real problem.
So why should the Labor Party fear changing its stance on gay marriage?
It's a really unusual reason what they're focusing on here. They've actually made it a big issue. I think if they just openly discussed it and allowed people to have the conscious vote early on and move on, it wouldn't have become as big as an issue as it is now. This issue came up in the election debate, and there was a number of discussions around the Labor Party's position on it, whereas they should have just had the conscious vote and come out and moved on, because it is focusing the electorate on an issue that shouldn't be as big as an issue as it is.
Okay, I want to quickly move on to the Masterchef issue. Junior Masterchef has just finished, and apparently one episode was edited and it left out an emotional meltdown by one of the 12-year-old contestants. Quickly, do you both have a view on whether children should be involved in competitions like this or not, Romilly?
Well, Simon and I were talking about this, and I have 3 children, and I said I would not allow my children to go into an environment like that. I want the kids to enjoy their childhood and not have such pressure. And maybe one of the things MasterChefs should have thought of doing is make it more of a team sport. So it didn't put pressure on these individual children, and it took some of that off and it allowed them to enjoy just a team environment.
But Simon, it could be argued that events like this encourage excellence.
Not only they encourage excellence, that they address an issue which is a huge problem in the community. We are, as a nation, largely nutritionally illiterate. We did some research earlier in the year. Only 14 or 15% of the country can actually name all of the 5 food groups, and let alone then know how many of those food groups they need, servings of which they need to have every day. And the last 5 days, I think 10% had actually ate according to those guidelines. We've got a huge problem here. And if this does anything to actually address the levels of nutritional literacy in the country, fantastic.
Fantastic debate. Thank you very much for both coming in. Simon Webb, Romilly Maju, it's been a pleasure having you on Newsmakers.
Thank you.